This is David Williams with Jesus Ministries. We want to get into a very powerful topic today. And it's going to seem a little weird to some of you who aren't used to talking along these lines, but hopefully you'll be able to fall right in line with what the Word of God is saying in our day and in our age. And we're going to talk briefly about this harlot. We're going to talk about this whore. Now, that's a difficult term for many to stomach. A prostitute. What is a prostitute? A prostitute, most widely, is known as a female who has sex for money, and the money that she gets, she gives to the one that is supposed to be managing her life, her money, her behaviors. So a prostitute is a female who does that. Now, obviously, there are male prostitutes. There are children that are exploited as prostitutes. But what is the concept here? Well, Babylon is known as an empire. It's an empire city-state. But it looks a certain way. The physical things have a spiritual influence. The physical things in our world have a spiritual representation in the sight of God. So your house might look like a flower in the presence of God. Let me give you an actual example where the Bible describes the churches as candles in the presence of Jesus Christ. And you can check that out in Revelation chapter 1. So in Revelation 1, he describes the churches as candles. He also describes the end time church as virgins, young women that are not married, but that are awaiting invitation to a marriage. He describes us as that. So there are very many things. Some people say that the Bible has allegory in it. Not as much. Really, when you hear the prophets talk about things that aren't literal, it's not that it isn't literal. It's just not literal in the physical world. So, but the thing is, the Word of God is true. And so when God talks about these things are real in the way that He's talking about them. That's just not their appearance in the natural plane or the natural realm. And so what He's getting into today in verse 2, or what we're going to be talking about today, is the judgment of this great whore. In verse 2 it says, for true and righteous are His judgments, for He, this is God, has judged the great whore, which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and has avenged the blood of His servants at her hand. So now we're talking about an empire that has corrupted the earth through fornication. And fornication is described as illegal sex. And this empire is also a persecutor of those who love Jesus, those who follow Jesus Christ. So this nation, this city, this empire that God brings wrath upon, that God brings destruction upon, this place, and as a matter of fact, the destruction that He's going to bring this destruction from other nations, from the actual beast. The Antichrist system is going to devour this empire that's a part of it. See, there are going to be many players in this end time situation, this end time scenario. Nation is going to rise against nation. Now, the dominant empire is going to be the beast's empire. But this great whore, this great prostitute, is going to be destroyed by the beast's empire. And it's a really, really powerful revelation. If you read Revelation 16, 17, 18, and 19. So the beast, the Antichrist, is going to destroy this harlot. The beast actually she's this female is riding the beast. And it's that beast that will turn on her. And so you're talking about a system of government. We're talking about a spiritual influence. We're talking about a group of people who God is going to use the Antichrist to judge and to tear down and to strip bare. But why? What's actually going on here? Well, this group of people, some people say it's the Catholic Church, some people say it's America, and people have their ideas about who the great whore is, who Babylon is. But this people, what they basically do is they get people to do wrong, and they do wrong in exchange for money. So if I can get a female to take off her clothes in public because people will pay her for it, if I can manipulate a woman to do that, I am causing the person who's looking at her to sin, the sin of lust. I'm causing her to sin by introducing her to them. And so she's guilty before God. The individual who's paying her for illegal services, they're guilty before God. The person who's manipulating the woman to do this with her body, she's guilty before God. If I could get someone to kill someone else for money, like the United States may send soldiers to kill people for money or for power or for control. The United States might agree with a nation where that nation, or I might agree with the nation, hey, go and overthrow this other nation. Start war with this other nation so that we can come in and gain control over that nation. Or, hey, the United States government might encourage another nation to pay its citizens little to nothing. Hey, start a financial crisis so we can have your workers sell us goods at next to nothing. Hey, nation over there, why don't you promote homosexuality? If you promote homosexuality, we'll give you financial aid. That's described as fornication. Fornication is an illegal transaction. And the United States and other nations illegally connect. And that illegal connection brings about a rebellion against God. It brings about hatred for the believers in Jesus Christ. And that nation eventually turns against the believers, against those who won't support its ways. The people that don't support the ways of the Antichrist government or of this whore government, this prostitute government, they get turned on by that very government. When North Korea was at war with South Korea right after World War II, the people that were of North Korea, I believe, if I'm remembering this right, that were Christians, the people that were of North Korea that were Christians that would not support the takeover of South Korea, people that would not support that, those people were murdered. If you didn't support the regime, then you were dealt with very harshly. And the United States is looking for a people who will support its ways. The Roman Catholic Church is looking for a people who will support its ways. The Roman Catholic Church, if people don't support its control of religion, then eventually the people will be subject to the persecution that the Roman Catholic leadership are going to encourage the nations to inflict upon the believer. Because the Pope is merging with these governmental leaders so that he can get the governmental leaders to afflict all of those, to persecute all of those who will not submit to Rome as the dominant religion. And so God is going to punish this Babylon system. He's going to afflict, he's going to destroy this Babylon system by the very Antichrist system that this Babylon system works and associates with. That's amazing. So you can rebel against God, and God will use the same resources that you're rebelling against him with to hurt you. Let's say you rebel against God by choosing to stay out of fellowship with him. You don't spend time with him in prayer because you work too much. Fine. You don't read the word of God because you work too much. You don't go to godly assemblies because you work too much. Well, the Lord may use that very same job to bring about stress in your life, to have you in environments that cause you to do worse things, things that you'd never thought you would be doing, if you forsake the Lord because you want a car or because you want a female, the Lord will use that female against you. If you forsake the Lord because you want a car, the Lord will have that car get into an accident. This sounds crazy. Oh, you believe that God does that to stuff? Listen, God judges prostitutes. If you trade what God has given you in exchange for pleasure, and that pleasure leads you away from God, God will punish you. He loves you, but He will punish you if you do this. And so He judges the whore, He judges the prostitute. And so the United States as a nation and nations that are like the United States of America, if we sin against God as we sin against God, God is going to judge this nation by the beast, by the Antichrist. The Antichrist isn't going to come as a friendly individual to all the nations. He's going to persecute and he's going to kill, but he's also going to persecute and he's going to kill those that actually are against the Lord as well. He's not only going to be persecuting Christians. But that's just a very important talk. So it's, the Word of God says in Revelation 18, come out of her, my people, so you don't suffer from her punishments. So be prayerful, be watchful, meditate on the Word of God. Make sure that you are paying attention to the stuff that He's saying. Make sure that you're worshiping Him. Make sure that you are in fellowship with godly believers, that you hold each other accountable to the Word of God, where God can raise up people in that group who are pastors or apostles or evangelists or teachers, and everybody can be jointly knit, because not everybody's an eye, not everybody's a hand, not everybody's a foot, but grow together. You may not find a good church in your area. Pray that God link you up with His church in your area, and you're going to find people, because God ordains that. He ordains the unity. It might not be in this particular building or that particular building, but it might be another group of people that God is raising up independently, but they're going to come together. And as they come together, God's going to distinguish who He wants to do what. And that person and those people will be blessed as they follow God, because we're going to need each other in this day when God does pour out His punishment, when God does allow the Antichrist system to come against the nations that we're in that are committing fornication, that are illegally transacting in exchange for that, because that's what a prostitute is. She does bad things for pleasure, and God calls you and I a prostitute if we do bad things for pleasure. So just be mindful, brothers and sisters, that Jesus Christ is coming to punish the nations that do these things. Come out of her so that you don't receive of her plagues. This is David Williams with Jesus Ministries, and if you're ever in the West Palm Beach area, you can come and join us here at Jesus Ministries. We're at 1750 Osceola Drive, West Palm Beach, Florida, 33409. If you want to donate to the work of the Lord here and you're not a part of a church and you want to support the ministry that we're offering to you through this internet site on YouTube or on Facebook, you can do that. You can actually go on our main channel page on YouTube, Worshiping Jesus. You can click the PayPal logo and donate through that way, or you can send check or money order to Jesus Ministries, P.O. Box 17143, West Palm Beach, Florida 23415. God willing, we'll be talking again.